everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of Halfway Through the Heat, the world's most important trans-Pacific wrestling podcast. I am one half of your hosts. My name is Tom. With me, as always, is Joe. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Tom.
This week, we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about Night of Champions and its attendant fallout, what it means for the Divas Revolution and you. We're going to see if the TNA Doomsday Clock has to be moved closer to midnight or farther away from midnight. We're going to talk about Lucha Underground. We're going to talk about Scott Steiner and a lawsuit. And we're going to talk about the brief and unspectacular history of fans trying to get involved in wrestling matches. But first, as we always do, as an island of good in a sea of bad, we will start the podcast by saying something positive about Raw. Joe, what is your positive thing about Raw this week?
Okay, now I had a lot more trouble with this one than I have on most Raws.
Yep.
I honestly I have to say that wow. It's so hard.
We're an island of positivity in a sea of negativity. What is the there had to be something positive about Raw. Right.
I guess the Paige promo. Sort of.
Mm-hmm. A little. We'll talk about that, but what did you think of the promo?
It was okay. Like, it was kind of a, the thing with it is that the promo itself wasn't bad. It's just that, like,
right.
It was so out of left field. Like, they kind of teased the Paige heel turn, like, one day before. But, like, before that, like, it was, like, all team go. And, like, Paige is the person who apparently brought all these people up.
Right.
In the story, at least. Like, why would she, like, all of a sudden turn into this, like, jerk about it? Like, oh, you didn't win on the first day you were here. Yeah, you called me up. You called me to join a team, not to be a singles wrestler. Of course I didn't win. That's that should have been the immediate reaction, because, like, it's just not, like, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's a good promo, but, like, kind of, like, out of left field, which kind of takes away from it. But I think, like, for what they're kind of doing with it, I guess, like, okay, that's, at least it gets rid of all these damn teams that have been, like, hogging the idea of, like, trying to get 9 people over at the same time.
Yeah, I agree, and I didn't like a lot about what happened with the promo. I thought the promo itself was all right, but like you said, there was no build up to it. There was no, like, tease this was going to happen. And then I thought, like, Charlotte's reaction, instead of acting as if her feelings were hurt, which would have made sense, Charlotte was just, like, essentially ready to fight right there. Like, it didn't. The whole thing just seemed really rushed and forced to me to try to create a new angle, which they could have taken a little while to develop. And I think it's just another sign that they're kind of floundering with their booking for the women.
Yeah, it is kind of a strange thing, because, like, the reaction was kind of like a little not babyfacious reaction, if that makes sense. You'd expect that she would be, like, just really upset, whereas instead she was just like, "Hold me back, Becky."
Right. Yeah.
It does make.
I don't know where.
Well, it's the kind of thing where, like, I feel like they're gonna end up going back to the Divas thing, where, like, you never know what they're gonna come out as. Just like the Bella formula, true neutral.
Yeah. Everyone in the Divas division is like the Big Show. They just, like, change from face to heel in the course of a single episode of Raw.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make a great deal of sense. It did, however, Paige's promo did prompt a wonderful tweet from Becky Lynch, which you can see on the blog, closetofanxiety.tumblr.com.
Yes, I did see that. That was good.
I guess my positive thing about Raw was I enjoyed John Cena and Seth Rollins. I thought their match was fun. Nothing spectacular. They've had better matches, but it was in a pretty bad Raw. That was at least a decent match.
You know, that was a good match, but the it's like we've seen it so much
Yeah.
recently, and like not only that, we saw it the day before.
Right, and the day before that was a better
Yeah, it
match.
was better the day before, and we had just seen it like six other times, and you know, I understand that John Cena should keep the title. I think that's good, but like, should he really be pinning the champion two nights in a row like clean?
Right. Yep.
I mean,
That's a good question.
it's a little strange. Like, oh, I mean, there's tons of other ways John Cena could have won that. Does he have to be clean pinning the champion two nights in a row to win the U.S. championship, like, and not the actual championship? I mean, what it does is it just puts that kind of thing like, oh, well, I guess he just beat the champion twice, 2 days in a row. I guess that makes him the champion number one contender again.
Right, or I mean, completely devalues the heavyweight championship if the U.S. champion can kind of just beat the world heavyweight champion at will.
It's kind of a weird, yeah, it's like a weird angle for the booking. I mean, it makes sense for him to win it back. So, like, okay, give him the win on at the pay per view. But
Right, but then it's over. Like, why does he have to wrestle him again? I mean, again, those guys always have good matches together, but what is the overall point of having them? I mean, that should be it. That should be the blow off, right? Cena wins the title back, and then Cena moves on to something else, and Rollins moves on to something else, which is apparently a feud with Kane.
okay, we're trying to stay positive about Raw.
Right.
So
So why don't I don't think it's gonna be possible this week. So why don't we just move into Night of
we should
Champions?
do that because moving into Night of Champions gives us the opportunity to be more positive than Raw would. But
Yeah, actually, Night of Champions surprisingly was pretty good.
yeah, um, I, a lot about Night of Champions was really good for me. Like watching it was fun, but because we watched it in a really weird way. But also the show itself was, there weren't any bad matches. Is what I want to say. There weren't. I mean, that's not to say every match was awesome because that is not true. But
Right.
there were a lot of kind of mediocre matches, but there were good matches and some mediocre matches, but no bad matches. And I wasn't like ever not feeling it. I wasn't like I'm gonna switch the channel here for a minute.
Right. Absolutely. There was no like popcorn match. There was no match where you felt like I'm just going to go and get food or like go to the bathroom or go stare up at the night sky, or the morning sky in your case. Um, it was every match kind of held my interest, even though not all of them were A plus or even B plus matches, but every match held my interest. I thought the results were basically good. Like New Day beating the Dudleys, that's great. It was a good use of the Dudleys to kind of get the New Day over, but also they didn't make the mistake of putting the belts on two guys who've now been together for 20 years. I thought the Divas match was fine. It wasn't the best match I've ever seen involving WWF women. Sorry, WWE women. But I'm glad the belt came off Nikki. And what else did we see? Oh, Kevin Owens. That to me was, I mean, we kind of expected it, but it was still a really good decision to give him the Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah, I agree on that because man, Ryback is like he's like the least electrifying man in sports entertainment.
Yeah, he wasn't doing anything for the championship. And although Mark and I mentioned that the night before, we went to an indie show in Connecticut and we saw somebody wearing a Ryback shirt. I think that's the first time I've seen a Ryback shirt like on a human
Was
being,
it
other than Ryback.
was it that blue "Feed Me More" T-shirt?
I believe it was the blue feeding time, whatever that one is,
Oh, okay, the one he always wears.
the one he always wears.
I'm surprised somebody was at a wrestling show and they were like, I gotta buy a T-shirt. There's all these guys' T-shirts here. I guess I'll go with the Ryback.
That's the shirt for me. He's the wrestler for me. When I want people to think about me involved in wrestling, I want them to think of the Ryback.
Yep. I don't know. I don't know where the thought process was there, but maybe there was. Maybe again, we're gonna be a little positive here. Maybe we'll give the guy the benefit of the doubt. He bought a shirt from everyone.
Or he got it for free, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, they shot it out of a cannon or something.
Or maybe his last name is Ryback, and he just thinks it's funny.
Oh, that could be true.
It could be true.
See, we got all these. We got these plausible scenarios for that guy to have a Ryback T-shirt.
Yeah. Yeah, we shouldn't be so hard on Ryback T-shirt guy. If I see him at the next CTWE show, I'll go up to him and apologize for thinking poorly of him.
No, but then if you actually talk to him, he'll confirm your worst fear that he's just a Ryback fan.
Yeah, it would be like, oh man, I love Ryback. You guys like Ryback? I love when he yells. So yeah, that's good. I can't wait to see what Kevin Owens does as Intercontinental Champion. I think he'll be a fantastic heel champion.
Is he going to be feuding with Ryback though?
Oh God, I hope not. I mean, probably initially, right? They always seem to do that weird thing where after someone wins a championship, it's not the end of the feud.
It's their rematch. The rematch clause, Tom. So I guess we'll see him wrestling Ryback next. That's probably not so hot, but yeah, at least we can say that Kevin Owens got a reasonable match out of Ryback.
He did. That wasn't a bad match. I mean, I think that's the best match you're going to have against Ryback, honestly.
Yeah, that's the thing. I didn't think it was a bad match either. I just thought this would be a much better match if it didn't involve Ryback.
That's right. Yeah, although it could have involved Big Show, so maybe we got lucky.
Yeah, wow. I guess it could have involved Big Show.
Who mercifully was not on the pay-per-view. Although I guess the worst part of the pay-per-view for me, I thought the two Seth Rollins matches were really good. Sting apparently really got hurt, which is terrible, but had a fantastic match. But then I thought the ending of that where Kane showed up, to me that was not a welcome appearance.
That was the worst thing because man, Kane. I know there's a lot of Kane fans out there, but I am not one of them. Even in his top as Kane, I was not a Kane fan ever, and Kane 20 years later, not so hot on that.
Yeah, we've been seeing this guy for a long time on TV, and yeah, there was never a point where I was a big Kane fan. Everyone who's met the guy says he's a wonderful human being. I totally believe that. He does whatever the company asks him to do. He's been great for them, but he's just not. He's not. To me, he's kind of he's like the GoBots version of the Undertaker, and I'm not that big on the Undertaker.
that is it's a pretty apt comparison, actually. I think, yeah, I'm not. I don't like the Undertaker either, and having like you said, he's like the GoBots version of the Undertaker. That's just not for me.
Yeah, if I had to pick, I'm picking the Undertaker because I want Transformers. I don't want GoBots. But now you're giving me GoBots of something I already kind of didn't like. That's just the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Kane I want to see, if you're forcing me to choose a Kane, the Kane I want to see is crazy Ayn Rand quoting libertarian Kane. I don't want to see scary red mask Kane.
The Kane I want to see is Christmas Creature Kane.
I mean, yeah, obviously. Obviously, we want to see the Christmas creature. But so that was, I mean, it was a solid, I would say B+ Night of Champions.
Yeah, it was a pretty good pay-per-view. Yeah, I'd give it a B. It's not it was above average.
It was above average.
And it was better than SummerSlam.
It was better than, which is funny because when you think about it, SummerSlam, that's their second biggest show of the year. They really hyped it up. They had, big celebrity. And I thought SummerSlam kind of fell flat. Night of Champions, which is sort of like a C show for them, it was really good. And, it actually had me interested in some new storylines. I can't wait to see what Kevin Owens does. I'm sort of curious to see what Cena's going to do.
I'm really excited if Kevin Owens continues his feud against the Secret.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's one of the best things about his. First of all, I don't know if it's true, like an actual thing, and if it's not, whoever came up with this is a genius. The idea that like Ryback had lost his confidence and regained it by reading The
I
Secret.
believe that's actually true.
Oh my God.
Like, I think Ryback is actually like a guy who is really into The Secret.
If you don't know, The Secret is this like ludicrous bit of like nonsense mysticism. This book that was very popular, like what, 10 years ago, maybe?
Is it that long ago? I don't even remember. I think it's still popular though. That's the thing.
Popular-ish, but it's like its heyday was when its heyday was when Oprah was still on the air, and Oprah prominently featured it. The Secret is basically a repackaged version of the idea of the power of positive thinking, like where if you sort of believe something enough, it will come true. It's nonsense, right? Because it also The Secret has this really nasty other side to it, where it kind of blames people for their own problems. Sort of like if you have cancer, it's because you have too many negative thoughts. That kind of bullshit.
Yeah, I there's a lot of things wrong with The Secret. Besides the fact that it's just bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's terribly written bullshit. Like it's stupid. It's just like this sappy mysticism for dopes. Um, and Jesus, I think you're right. Like now that I'm looking online, I'm seeing people talking about like Ryback actually actually is a reader in The Secret.
No, I think I either heard him talk about it in an interview or someone else was talking about Ryback liking The Secret a lot in an interview. I'm pretty sure this is true. So I think he is really into The Secret. Like he's one of those guys.
That's amazing because he's a huge, scary looking dude, and the idea of him like reading an Oprah book club selection and like trying to put more positive thoughts into the universe. By the way, clearly we are not putting many positive thoughts into the universe.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't have cancer either, so I guess The Secret is wrong.
well, not yet. Okay, yeah, I'll post a link. It's a legit radio station interview with Ryback where he talks about being a college student at UNLV and growing up in Nevada and how The Secret improved his life.
There you go. I
I mean, like you never know what's legit in pro wrestling, but apparently he is maintaining in his outside the ring appearances that The Secret really helped, which is hilarious. And Kevin Owens has been like mercilessly ridiculing The Secret, and he's totally right. If anything, he's being too kind on The Secret.
I like that he ripped pages out of it and threw it at Ryback. That was
Kevin Owens, this cannot be said enough. Kevin Owens is one of the best things, not just about the WWE, but about professional wrestling in North America right now.
man. You know
I
what? Like
I would.
when Kevin Owens first came to WWE, I was like not sold. Totally sold now.
Hmm.
So good.
I agree. I Yeah, I wasn't sure. Like I just, I'd heard of him in the Indies and I'd seen him a little bit, and I just thought like, I don't know, but man, he's amazing. He's really good. He's good at everything. Like I posted this on the blog too. Some fan who's like, I don't know what the deal is, but the fan like clearly is super super into wrestling. Is one of those people. Um, she was tweeting at Kevin Owens and she's like, "I hope you lose on Sunday to Ryback, you bully." And then like she has like 23 followers on Twitter. It's and Kevin Owens tweets back. He's like, "Your Twitter feed is awesome. I'm following you now." And he did follow her. So like one of her 23 followers is Kevin Owens.
It's so great. Um,
I mean, he does everything like from social media to wrestling. He does it all. He's a really good promo. He's just a hilarious and just the kind of like shit-eating grin photos he posted after his win with like him and Triple H doing the click too sweet sign, just infuriating wrestling nerds. Like I just love it.
yeah,
Um,
he's really good at being a dick, and it's possible that he's actually really a dick.
it is, yeah. I mean, it's possible. It's conceivable. I don't buy a lot of wrestling T-shirts because, as we've covered in detail on this podcast, they're usually awful. But he had it was a house show in Montreal last Friday, and it was his first show in Montreal since becoming a big star in WWE. And it was at the Bell Center where the Montreal Canadiens hockey team plays. They're my favorite hockey team. And so just for the show, the WWE made like a special Kevin Owens shirt, like in a like Habs colors, and I bought it because of that. I mean, like it's two things I really really like coming together in the best possible way. That's how much I like Kevin Owens. I'm gonna wear a Kevin Owens shirt in public.
Did you actually get that shirt, the Habs one?
Yep, I did.
Was it like a 1 day only exclusive?
Something like that. Yeah, I saw him tweet about it. I went on to WWE shop and bought it.
You're expanding your wrestling shirt collection.
I know it's Adrian Neville, Kevin Owens, Bobby Heenan, and Gorilla Monsoon. I also have a Sherry Martel shirt, but it's kind of faded now. I've washed it too many times.
You've worn it so much that you just
It's kind of faded away. Um, but so anyway, yeah, Night of Champions was good. We're pretty happy with it. Looking forward to the next pay-per-view. We have some news. Why don't we move in to the news? Why don't we actually no? We should break up our TNA news into different. You found a new TNA story that we should talk about. Uh, Tell us about this story. Does this mean we have to change the position of the hands on the TNA
yeah,
Doomsday
it
Clock?
means we have to slightly move the Doomsday Clock backwards. Just slightly though, because this story is about TNA is saying, well, I mean, Dixie Carter is like spinning this like, oh, we only had an agreement with TNA until the end of the year, so at least we're gonna last until the end of the year. That's the agreement. So instead of the rumored end in September, they have shown that they have TV until the end of the year, and they've actually scheduled more shows. So there are some more shows, and there is that pay-per-view in October.
That's right, Bound for Glory. They keep saying Charlotte, North Carolina, but it's actually Concord, North Carolina. uh, yeah, but then after that, they've got shows up through I believe November 1 or 2. They're doing it's called like the Halloween Hardcore Halloween tour. So they're gonna be doing shows in the South. I don't know if those are televised, if they're being taped or what, but they are having shows.
I assume they're going to be taped for the for their TV since I assume they didn't tape enough TV to last until the end of the year.
Right. No, yeah, I mean because they haven't been taping in a while, although they still have shows, and in fact they had a pretty decent one last week. Um, it had all the problems that TNA usually has, but there was a really good match between Mia Yim and Gail Kim in a cage. Um, it's the like classic TNA. There was good wrestling, but then there was like terrible booking, and it, it's just a mess. Um, but yeah, so I presume they're going to be taping some shows, and if this story that you linked to is anything to go by, then they might be on Destination America through the end of the year and in negotiations for 2016.
Well, that could work out. TNA could still be alive and kicking next year.
They have beaten the odds before. What does this mean for Global Force Wrestling? Because I believe that storyline, the invasion, is wrapping up before Bound for Glory, which is idiotic, but is classic TNA.
Yeah, well, I assumed that they were just doing it for as like a hyper sped up version of an NWO invasion
Yeah,
because like they were going to be off TV. So they were like, we got to finish this story now. So they just like went through this like high speed NWO invasion. But now it seems probably likely that that was the reason. But now that they have more TV, they might extend it, or probably not. Though it's TNA, they'll just drop it entirely and turn it into something else. But apparently, also, I didn't post a link to the news story, but they were saying that in order to get that angle done, Jeff Jarrett sold his stake in TNA back to Dixie Carter.
yes. And then this is like one of the weird ways in which wrestling, like the storyline collides with reality. In reality, it's much easier to sell a company if one person owns it than if there are multiple owners. So that could be the reason for that. But there's also a kayfabe reason, which is that it's part of the global force invasion angle. Um, so yeah, the Sports Illustrated story actually says that TNA has extended their deal with Destination America through February.
Yeah, there you go. Through February.
So I think the Doomsday Clock, the TNA Doomsday Clock, has to go back to like 11:54 at this point.
Wow.
If we know they're going to be on TV like up to February, they're going to last longer than like half the Republican presidential candidate field.
It's true. That's actually true. Okay. Guess we can move it back. Um, what was it at before though? It was at 58 or
Was it?
something.
It was 11:58. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because we it was at 11:59 and 30 seconds, but then we saw they had booked more shows. They were going to be doing shows in the South in October, November, so we moved it back to 11:58.
And then, all right, I guess we got to move it back more.
Yeah, I think 4 more months of TV means 4 minutes, so 11:54. We're gonna one of these days we're actually gonna make a TNA Doomsday Clock.
We'll have to get their Photoshop going, or
Yeah,
you should just make it out of construction paper and some brads. Just push those in the middle, and you'll be able to move the hands. It'll be perfect. It's like a second.
that's not a bad
It's like a
idea.
second grade art project. You can totally do that.
I can totally do it, and I'll draw in the middle of it. I'll draw like a Jeff Jarrett face, and his hair and beard will be gold glitter.
Perfect. You should make the Jeff Jarrett out of macaroni though.
I think I might do this actually. I think I got some spare time coming up. All right, so the TNA Doomsday Clock has been moved back to 11:54. Good job, Dixie and TNA. Other news that is even better for wrestling fans. I know it's hard to imagine what could be better news than TNA's continued existence. Last night, I saw it on Twitter, and now it's been confirmed. Lucha Underground is coming back for a second season.
Yeah, really excited about that. There's not much more I can say because it's just super exciting news. But they said it's not going to be on the El Rey network, so I wonder where it's going to be
Ah,
shown.
there was an update to the story about this. It is going to be back on El Rey, and it looks like it's going to be filmed in the temple. So there had been some speculation that it was going to be either moving to a different network and or moving to Mexico to be filmed. But Deadline, which is a reputable Hollywood website, Deadline is reporting the show will be staying on El Rey and will continue to film in the Boyle Heights neighborhood, which is where it's currently shot at the temple. So production is set to resume in the fourth quarter of this year, which is starting October 1. So new episodes will be starting in 2016.
Very good. Lucha Underground. Very good.
That is fantastic news. That is probably the best wrestling show on television in North America.
I would agree. It's so good. And watching it, like I got pretty invested in all the stories too. Like they were all done so well and put together in a way that like was logically consistent throughout the entire season. And they didn't drop any storylines. They didn't like leave anything hanging. They brought everything together, brought people back from way early in the season to continue their stories that had stopped. It was really good. It was just so good overall. And not only that, the wrestling is awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, it featured some of the best indie talent. And I had honestly sort of given up hope because it was just a day ago, I think that or maybe 2 days ago that Vampiro on his Twitter was kind of venting and complaining that they hadn't heard anything, no one knew what was going on, this was terrible, blah blah blah, and that seemed to me like a real sign that the plug had been pulled. And then just a day later, it turns out. So I've got the Deadline story up here. El Rey Network, Mark Burnett, he's the executive producer, and United Artists Media Group have announced the second season renewal of the Lucha Libre wrestling series Lucha Underground. Series will go back into production in the Boyle Heights neighborhood of Los Angeles in the fourth quarter of 2015 for premiere on El Rey Network in early 2016. Uh, um, this Burnett, the executive producer, just won another Emmy, I guess, because he's the guy behind the Voice TV show, and he's also the guy behind Shark Tank. So he's behind some like real hits, and it's nice that he believes in this kind of quirky, low rated but really high quality kind of artsy show as far as wrestling goes.
Yeah, it is really good. I mean, the vignettes they shoot are all really shot well, like way better than anything else that like if you look at the vignettes for like WWE or something, they're just like a dude with a camera following people around. It's not like crazy camera work or anything.
Right.
When Lucha Underground does those things, they're like produced and they've got special effects and stuff. It's like they're way they're on a whole different level.
It's made by people who actually know how to do a TV show
Yeah.
as opposed to just a wrestling show, and I think that comes across. Also, I like that they have storylines that only exist in the Lucha Underground universe. Like Prince Puma is Ricochet. He's not really like Ricochet does not wrestle as Prince Puma except on Lucha Underground, and like Mil Muertes is as Messias. Like he doesn't wrestle as Mil Muertes outside. So I like that they kind of created their own characters. They did everything really well. It's very pulpy, but I think that's perfect for the product. And like you said, the wrestling is fantastic. It doesn't skimp on the wrestling, even though it's much more of a TV show about a wrestling show than it is a wrestling show.
Yeah, it's really good. Just so much good about Lucha Underground. I'm so glad that it's coming back because like that, I watch Raw pretty much every week, but Lucha Underground was like I was looking forward to watching every week. Unlike Raw, where I'm like sometimes just like, oh, I can't believe I'm gonna watch Raw again.
I know. Yeah, I just kind of say to myself, "Oh my god, I gotta." Mostly because of this podcast, because I have to find something positive to say about Raw.
Yeah, I mean, if I weren't doing the podcast, I would be skipping Raw sometimes. It'd be just like, I guess I could just look at the results.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I mean, sometimes when I come to the one positive thing, I'm like, I'm done.
I don't have to watch anymore, thank God.
Uh, this is excellent. I like to see that Evilise is tweeting about season 2. So I don't know. I assume they're going to bring back all or most of the talent, and that's really good to see because that I think is key to the success of the
The
show.
talent who didn't die, you mean?
Right. Yeah, the talent didn't die. I think it's key to the show to sort of keep that consistency. But yeah, I'm excited. I guess Alberto Del Rio or Alberto El Patron is not confirmed yet, but he's got a lot going on.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Oh yeah, what else has he got? So that's good news. Lucha Underground is back. TNA is still alive. This is not quite a wrestling renaissance we're in, but uh, speaking of TNA, our last bit of news. There's a court date, also in early 2016, which this will be interesting. It's in April 2016. It'll be interesting to see if TNA exists when this trial date finally happens. They are suing Scott Steiner. They're suing Scott Steiner for disparaging them and Hulk Hogan and a few other people, Bruce Pritchard, on Twitter. And I don't know. I was just looking at the summation of the kind of the court date, so I don't know exactly what Scott Steiner is alleged to have said, but like I can't like how could you when you think about all the horrible stuff that's routinely said about TNA, like how could you have said something that like rose to the level of them suing?
I think the idea for it is, I think that Scott Steiner probably has some kind of clause in his contract that he can't say anything bad about TNA after he left or whatever.
Oh, that's such a waste of time. That lawsuit though, like who cares?
Yeah, I mean that's essentially like that's what Scott Steiner's defense is. It's just like, well, I never agreed not say anything bad about the company, or that I don't think my remarks hurt TNA in any way, and he wasn't part of TNA at the time, so I mean it's Scott Steiner. You expect him to like say crazy things when he's employed for you. What I mean, you can't possibly expect him to not say crazy things after he's gone.
Right, that's true. Yeah, I mean Scott, of all people, like why are you? The idea of Scott Steiner testifying in a courtroom is so delicious because I picture him wearing the chainmail headdress.
Of course he would.
Um, yeah, that would be almost better than the Hulk Hogan trial, which is also scheduled to start in the spring of 2016.
I hope that goes well.
By which you mean you hope Hulk Hogan destroys Gawker Media?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's certainly possible.
Well, like
Certainly
the
possible.
case didn't get thrown out of court or anything, so I mean it didn't get dismissed, so there's a possibility he can win.
It's an uphill battle for Hogan. Media law in this country is very favorable to the press, but you never know. You never know what a jury is going to do, especially when they're confronted by the real American, who speaking of news, is supposedly going to be playing a villain in the fourth installment of the Expendables movie series.
Oh, great. I've never seen an Expendables movie, but
Neither have I. Neither have I.
but is it gonna have like um I don't know who could be in it?
Well, supposedly The Rock is also under consideration. I mean, The Expendables is this horrible movie franchise where like it's Sylvester Stallone is the executive producer, so immediately you're thinking platinum, and it's like all these old like action movie stars from the past.
I want to say, Tom, it's not really fair to say Sylvester Stallone is a bad director. He put out the greatest musical movie of all time, Staying Alive.
I mean, the man has so many great films to his.
Yeah.
He's a guy who really started the show with the Showstopper, by which I mean Rocky, and then it's just been it's been strikes and gutters ever since then for Sly. But
Hey, wait. He was in The Wanderers.
he wasn't the Wanderer, but I don't think he had any like creative. I
Oh,
think he was just an
okay,
actor.
that's true. He was in a porno.
He was, but it was a softcore.
Okay, whatever.
So yeah. Anyway, so Hulk Hogan, his career rehabilitation at the point is where like he's already being considered for a part in a big Hollywood movie because The Expendables is a huge franchise with all these old men who are in really good shape, doing stunts and blowing things up. So yeah, the Hulk Hogan image rehabilitation train is continuing to make its way across the media landscape. I think that's all we have for news. Am I missing anything?
No, I think that's it.
Oh, Kurt Angle's brother was arrested for killing his wife. That's not really wrestling related, but kind of horrifying.
Yeah, that was when that story broke, it was like right after the pay-per-view. And we were like, yeah, that was a good pay-per-view. And then Tom is like, oh yeah, Kurt Angle's brother just got arrested for killing his wife. Thanks for ruining the pay-per-view, Tom. That was pretty much how it was.
Yeah, I did kind of ruin the afterglow, but you know what? I used to work in breaking news, so I can't help it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think a lot of that was so well, we should mention how we watched the pay-per-view because it's ridiculous.
it is ridiculous. We so as many of you know, as we are the world's most important trans-Pacific wrestling podcast, Joe is in Tokyo, which is I believe the largest city in the world. Anyway, it's in Japan. I'm in central Connecticut, which is far away from Japan, and because it's like one of Japan's many weird holidays this week. Is that right?
Yes, I don't. I think actually I don't know what the holiday on Monday was because today would be the first day of fall, right?
That's right.
So there's some other holiday that was happening, somebody's birthday or some made up holiday or whatever.
The emperor's bar mitzvah or something like
Yeah,
that. Who knows?
but it could have been like
Um,
some emperor from 100 years ago's birthday or whatever. We don't know.
we don't know. But anyway, normally WWE pay-per-views air at a time that is Monday morning for Joe. But and they did in this case as well. Night of Champions was actually Morning of Champions in Tokyo. However, since he didn't have to work, through the magic of the internet, I just I Skyped it up on my iPad Mini because my laptop was actually in the shop being fixed, and just pointed it at the old TV so Joe could watch the TV on his computer and simultaneously talk to Mark and I about the wrestling. It was one of the weirdest experiences I've had as a wrestling fan when you think about how remarkable it is. Like technology is at a point too where like we just sort of take all this stuff for granted, but the fact that you could be in Tokyo watching a television in Connecticut while talking to people in the room it would have been the most mind-blowing feat of magic 100 years ago. Nobody would have believed that was possible.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing, and like I was also watching a stream of it, so my stream was actually about a minute ahead of theirs. So I
That's true. So yeah, there'd be moments where we would just hear like Joe reacting to things, and we're like, "What? What?" He's like, "You'll see." It was like talking to someone in the future.
yeah, it was so I am literally in the future. But
Yes, I mean technically it was talking to someone in the future because it was Monday morning for you and Sunday night for us.
I was seeing all the match results like like a minute to a minute and a half before you guys for everything. So it was I'd be like, okay, watch this amazing thing Sting did.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was a really fun way actually. I kind of hope you have more Emperor birthdays on Mondays that coincide with pay-per-views.
I was gonna say I have another one next month, but I think it probably doesn't coincide with the pay-per-view.
Well, the next Shine pay-per-view is actually a Friday night here, which I believe is Saturday morning for you.
That's true.
We could watch Shine that way.
Yeah, I mean, no one else is gonna watch it with you, Tom.
No, no, that is absolutely certain. And it'll feel less weird if I'm watching women's wrestling with a friend instead of by myself. Um, all right, so you know what? Speaking of the pay-per-view and news, this is our next segment. This is the only other segment we have for this week, um, because my computer's broken. But as anyone who watched the pay-per-view knows, there was a six-man tag, the Wyatt family against Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns, and they had a mystery partner, which we all thought was Cesaro, and we were wrong. We can admit that. We're big enough to admit we were wrong. It
Yeah,
wasn't
it
Cesaro.
wasn't Cesaro, which was actually kind of a surprise because he didn't have a match in the pay-per-view,
He didn't. There was nothing for
and then he
Cesaro.
just
It was
lost on Raw the next day.
can't do Big Show. It was Chris Jericho was the surprise partner. However, before the surprise partner was unveiled, a fan like dressed as kind of like a discount Roman Reigns, like he had a flak jacket esque garment and green camouflage pants, like jumped into the ring and was, I mean, quickly tackled by security. And it was felt like Bray Wyatt was joking about it. He was like, "Is that your guy?" You know, like it was so well done, Bray Wyatt. Um, but this is like the fourth incident, right? The fourth incident of like in recent, like the last month, of fans trying to involve themselves in wrestling matches that have members of the Shield,
Yeah, it's the
right? So
fourth because there was the guy who threw the briefcase at Roman
Roman Reigns.
Reigns.
There was the guy who tried to stab Dean Ambrose at a house show. Or no, maybe it was SmackDown.
I might have been a house show. I don't know. It might have been SmackDown. I don't remember.
And then there was a guy who like just kind of like jumped out of the crowd and started skipping alongside Seth Rollins when Seth was coming out to the ring. And now you have this guy who like showed up as the mystery partner and who, by the way, is now going to be spending the next 10 days in jail.
Yeah,
So
that's for, and there is a big theme to this. All of those guys were members of the Shield.
what is wrong with you weirdos and the Shield? Now, since I got back into wrestling, it was right around the time the Shield was starting up, and I noticed like the ardor of fans for the Shield. There are a lot of Shield, and great, they were a great faction. Individually, all those guys are terrific, but there's this weird level beyond that for Shield fans. Whereas like nobody jumps in the ring when Fandango is there, or like nobody tries to get involved in Ziggler's matches. It's just members of the Shield. What is wrong with people? Why do people? And like one like some like like some drunk fan who wants to be on TV. That's like the Seth thing that struck me as like some drunk idiot who wanted to be on TV, so he like runs out. But like the guy who dresses up like Roman Reigns and then jumps into the ring and stands. What did he think was going to happen? Did he think that they were going to be like, oh, this is our partner right here? Baldy McWeirdo is going to be our partner. He's gonna we're gonna have this guy in a wrestling match. What is it with people and the members of the Shield? Do you understand? I don't.
I don't either. There's something weird going on with people and the Shield. I mean, there's all that weird slash fiction. First of all, um,
Yes.
there's like all the people jumping in the ring for the Shield. There's all the like crazy hatred of anybody who's dating members of the Shield. Like it's
Yes.
so weird. There's so much craziness going on with them, and the fans are. It's really strange. And I think like I would have said that like, oh, Seth Rollins has kind of escaped that, but he hasn't really. Even though like he's not with those guys anymore, like still fans are gonna like run out and skip next to him or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. We should. I mean, also the day of the pay per view, Renee Young, the WWE like interviewer, who's also dating Dean Ambrose in real life, posted a thing on her Instagram, like it was a text piece, basically asking people to like leave her alone and kind of get on with their lives and stop obsessing over her personal life because she gets an amazing amount of hatred from people on social media who are obsessed with Dean Ambrose and who like just make up the most scurrilous rumors about her, I guess, in hopes of convincing Dean to break up with her and start dating them. And like any woman who Dean Ambrose has ever been photographed with gets some level of this, which is insane to me. I mean, he's a good-looking guy, but come on. Um, it's just a very weird phenomenon. However, this is certainly not the first time fans have tried to get involved in wrestling matches. And that was one of the subtext, like, hot takes after Sunday night's invasion by a Discount Shield member. Um, a number of people, including X-Pac, tweeted or said something to the effect of, the wrestlers should just beat the hell out of members of the crowd who like get in the ring or who jump the railing. Like that's the only way people are going to learn. Now, I think if people understand that you go to jail if you try to do that, they might realize it's not worth it. But this is this whole idea that whenever there were like crowd invasions or crowd interference in the old days, the territory days, the wrestlers would just like kind of combine forces and beat the hell out of the fans, and that would be the end of it. So now this is actually true. Right. In the territory days, there were episodes where people really taking it seriously, like really tried to hurt the wrestlers. And sometimes the wrestlers would fight back. Don Fargo, who was in a number of really great heel tag teams back in the day in Gulf Coast Wrestling and all over the NWA. He was one of the Daltons and one of the Fargos. In his book, he talks about there was a show in I think Halifax in Nova Scotia where I think either as the Fargos or the Daltons, whatever, they were beating up the faces, and this like guy from a college hockey team got so into it that he like ran up and tried to help the faces, and like the two heels like just beat the hell out of this guy, not knowing that the rest of this guy's teammates were there, who then like jumped in to help their friend, and then of course the baby faces jump in to help the heels, which shocked the hockey players because they had, they thought the whole thing was real. And so it was apparently this like horrible melee with like the wrestlers swinging baseball bats and the hockey players swinging hockey sticks. And so that kind of thing did happen. And I was looking into other notable incidences of fan interference, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff out there. For example, Ric Flair, before he became a wrestler, was like notorious in the American Wrestling Association, the great AWA, because Ric Flair grew up in the Twin Cities. Ric Flair was like notorious as like a teenage fan who like would get drunk and try to pick fights with the heels.
That's great.
That's
That's
like,
a very Ric Flair thing.
And like Nick Bockwinkel apparently talks about this in a shoot interview, like almost punching Ric Flair at some show when he saw like Ric Flair like put a leg over the barricade. Like there's also been some other ones. You can find some footage online if you look for them. There's one. It's a match where La Parka, the luchador, goes into the crowd, and I guess he was working a heel at the time, and a fan like throws a punch at La Parka, and La Parka just turns around and decks the guy, and the guy drops like a sack of bricks. Like, don't throw punches at the wrestlers. There was a really interesting one and this is fantastic because it actually like it's one of those weird blending of the real and the fake. In 1988, there was a steel cage match between Macho Man Randy Savage and Ted DiBiase in Madison Square Garden. And during the match, DiBiase was the heel, of course. A fan like jumped the guardrail and tried to get into the steel cage to help out Macho Man, and Ted DiBiase like called to Virgil to stop the guy, and Virgil was playing his bodyguard and actually tackled the guy. Like he was playing his bodyguard, and then he really was Ted DiBiase's bodyguard.
That's great. There was lots of times actually on WCW TV where fans would jump in the ring and then the wrestlers would just knock them out. Like it always happened.
Yeah, I found a couple of prominent episodes where Mike Awesome was wrestling Vampiro in WCW, and a fan ran in and punched Mike Awesome, and then Vampiro and Mike Awesome turned and like beat the hell out of the guy. Also, after Hulk Hogan made his famous heel turn in WCW, apparently fans were always trying to attack him, and like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash had to like occasionally jump in and stop people from attacking Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. That you would see that on TV sometimes, and you'd just be like, "What the hell just happened?" Oh, some dude tried to run in the ring.
Yeah, and it keeps happening. There was I found there was in 2013 at a house show, WWE house show in Cape Town, South Africa. A fan jumped into the ring and hit Randy Orton in the balls, like, and then he got arrested. And apparently it was not a very serious blow. But what are you thinking? I mean, I truly don't Sometimes people are intoxicated, as apparently young Ric Flair was in the AWA days. And we should say sometimes this gets really, really. I mean, there have been really serious instances. In 1974, late 74, at an AWA show in Chicago, when Nick Bockwinkel was wrestling, Heenan was his manager. Bobby Heenan was his manager, and a guy in the crowd pulled out a gun and started shooting and hit four people in the crowd. Didn't hit Heenan, hit four people in the crowd. I heard Heenan tell the story in a shoot interview with Jim Cornette, and I was like, that's got to be an exaggeration. Because, wrestlers they exaggerate a little bit sometimes. Maybe. But I looked up and found newspaper coverage at the time. It really happened. Some lunatic actually tried to shoot Bobby Heenan at an AWA show and shot four people instead. And I saw, like, sometimes people are drunk, sometimes people are, maybe mentally impaired, but they can't be everybody. Like, it's fascinating to me how people get so invested in it that they want to, like, interfere in some way and, like, help Randy Savage.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you listen to a lot of the older wrestlers do shoot interviews, you inevitably someone will ask them about this kind of thing, and it'll come up. Like Jim Cornette has a bunch of stories about fans trying to attack him or whatever because he was always telling stories about having to defend himself with the racket, like smacking off fans with the racket or whatever, and how like sometimes wrestlers would have to come save him because like the whole crowd would like riot on him, like just dogpile on him. And he also talked about a time where there was in the town they were in, there was like somebody who had escaped from jail recently, and they like ended up at the wrestling show, and like they got so wrapped up in the story that like when the babyface started losing, he tried to bum rush the ring to help the babyface and was arrested. And then they found out like, oh, this is the guy that just escaped from jail. So that kind of thing where like, you shouldn't be making a spectacle of yourself because you are an escapee from jail. Like even then, still too caught up in the wrestling to not avoid trying to run into the ring. It's a different kind of way people get wrapped up in it. And like it's not, and I want to say like that's even like in WCW, like that's not that long ago, like 20 years ago.
No.
So when Hulk Hogan like turned to a heel, that was huge, and like people like the ring was flooded with garbage on that. If you just go back and just watch the clip of that, it's crazy. There's like little kids crying in the audience too. It's like it's kind of crazy, but now it's the kind of thing where like the people who are jumping the barricades aren't jumping in to help the baby faces. They're just like coming out to fulfill their weird sexual fantasies about the Shield or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that to me is just absolutely bizarre. The worst fan interference incident, actually, of course, it involved ECW, and it was November 23rd, 1996, at the Wonderland Ballroom in Revere, Massachusetts, and it's a place I've been to. I saw Coxbar, the English punk band, play there. So this has become known as the mass transit incident. This is like the worst possible fan interference because it was a fan interference abetted by the organization. There was a 17-year-old named Eric Koulis who wanted to be a professional wrestler and used the name Mass Transit, and his gimmick was that he was like a bus driver, Mass Transit. And he just like showed up at the day of a ECW house show and like asked to be added to the card and said he was 19 and said he had been trained as a wrestler, and neither of those things were true. And Paul Heyman later said that he was convinced to allow this fan into the ring because a midget wrestler told him the fan was an all right guy, which is such a great ECW. It's like, all right, like this kid just showed up and wants to wrestle, but this midget wrestler said he's all right. That's all I need.
Perfect.
So it was a tag team match. It was this kid, Eric Koulis, a.k.a. Mass Transit, and Devon Dudley against the Gangstas. and the match called for Coolest to bleed. He had never done it before, in fact, because he was not trained as a wrestler. And so he asked New Jack to do the blade
Bad
job
idea.
on horrible idea. Horrible idea. There's a video of it online. I don't recommend watching it if you're squeamish. New Jack cuts his head so deeply that he severed 2 arteries, and like the blood, it just sprays out of his head, and he passes out. So he's taken out in a stretcher, and they're eventually ECW is sued. In fact, the event led to the cancellation of their pay-per-view, which Heyman was eventually able to get reinstated a few months later. There's a tragic coda to the story. Eric Koulis was you can see in the video is badly overweight at 17, and in fact died at the age of 22 because of his weight problems. So I mean the whole thing is just horrifying, and it's a really good example of why your dream of being a wrestler should stay just a dream if you're not willing to go to a wrestling school and put in the work to do it. And that goes for people who own a flak jacket and camouflage pants and think they might be Roman Reigns' partner as well. Just leave it on your weird Dean Ambrose sex Tumblr, and keep it out of wrestling rings. I guess that's our moral of the story.
Yeah, I think that's a good moral, Tom. No. That's right. You heard it here first. Keep it on your Dean Ambrose sex Tumblr. Don't bring it in the ring.
That's right. That's right.
That's the new tagline for our show.
It's good advice that anyone can follow. I think that's all we have scheduled for this week, but we both have wrestling shows coming up too that we're going to attend, correct?
Yep, I'm going to be headed to a DDT Pro show this weekend. It should be good. Should I talk about DDT Pro?
Talk about DDT Pro because this is a fascinating promotion. This is not like New Japan. If you're a fan of Japanese wrestling, this is a little different.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're a fan of New Japan and you think like, oh, there's gonna be some strong style matches, DDT Pro is not like that. DDT Pro is like, it's kind of like Japanese Chikara, but mixed with ECW or something. It's kind of crazy. So it's like the Japanese version of sports entertainment, like kind of cranked up to 11. There's all these wacky titles, and they make new titles all the time and canceled titles all the time. So there's like all these bizarre titles. Like one of the main titles now is the King of Dark Match title, which is apparently a title that you it's like the title of shame in that if you win the match you lose the title. So like the current champion who has the King of Dark Match title has lost like 13 matches in a row or something, and he's desperate to get rid of the title. But I mean it's goofy, but like there's so much stuff that's more goofy than that. There's a title that has to involve some type of weird stipulation in the match. So there's all these matches with crazy stipulations, and I'm trying to think. Maybe the last show had like a tiger trap blindfolded bra match between two men, and like that you win by taking the bra off the other competitor, but they're blindfolded and there's tiger traps around the ring. So it makes no sense. And there's like every show there's like some crazy match with all these crazy stipulations because it's part of the gimmick for the title. And then there's all these weird kind of things going on. So like if you've been checking out the Tumblr, I think you reposted the matches I posted of the there's like Kota Ibushi, who is like a legit super good wrestler in New Japan, but he also wrestles in DDT Pro, and he's like wrestling one of the wrestlers, and I'm air quoting, in DDT Pro, who is named Yoshihiko, who is a blow up doll. It's like a surprisingly good match for a dude wrestling a blow up doll too. Like
it is, and haven't they had matches that are like a table versus a ladder or something?
Yeah, I don't know if that was DDT Pro, but it's a very DDT Pro kind of thing where like if you look up, there's a maybe that's Saitama Pro who did that, but there is a match where it's a table versus ladder match where it's literally a dude underneath the table, like moving the table around, and he knocks the ladder over and pins it. Um, it's that's a very DDT Pro kind of thing, even though I don't think that happened in DDT Pro. There was like Kenny Omega wrestling a 9-year-old girl. Um, all types of stuff like that, where there's just kind of all types of wackiness in DDT Pro. So it's not like a serious kind of we're gonna we're gonna have like some serious matches all the time. I mean, there's serious matches. There's good matches in there. Like any match with Kota Ibushi is gonna be crazy because like he's like a crazy high flyer and he's more than willing to do all these types of crazy moves. So he's actually gonna be at the show on Sunday. But DDT Pro, they have all these, like it's just like the weird, like how you think of Japan has all this like weird stuff going on. Imagine that kind of like weird Japan thing kind of mixed with wrestling, and it becomes DDT Pro. Um, I want to say like, I live near a place in Japan named Jiuga Oka, and there's like DDT Pro has a Jiuga Oka tag titles, and it's a discontinued championship. It's not running anymore, but the final holders of the DDT Pro Jiuga Oka tag titles was a tag team called the Shit Heart Foundation, and essentially they're like dudes. They're like a C-list Heart Foundation, made of Japanese wrestlers dressed up in Heart Foundation clothes. It's it that's DDT Pro, so it's all types of wacky. There actually is a fan blog that like covers DDT Pro matches, and I think if you just search for DDT Pro into English, maybe it'll come up. And if you're interested in checking out like more of the wacky dark matches and things, the dark match title and all the weird stipulations that they have, it's worth it just to like scroll through the matches and check the stipulation matches because they're all crazy.
And I believe Joey Ryan is going to be there, correct?
Yes, Joey Ryan will be there, wrestling as part of a tag team, I think, with somebody else. I don't remember. Um, I know
He's quite a fan here on Halfway Through the Heat. That's going to be fun for you. He always has a fun match.
you're the world's biggest Joey Ryan fan.
I'm up there. I think I'm top 5 at least.
Top five Joey Ryan fan. There you are. So I'm hoping that I get a chance to talk to him while he's there, so I can I'm gonna hey you're international super wrestling superstar Joey Ryan, aren't you? He'll be
Yeah, you can tell him about your friend in New England who bought a picture of his chiseled physique and he signed it "Size Matters."
yeah. It's see my idea is that I would show him a picture of you because he would probably recognize you.
I'm pretty. Yeah, we've talked at a couple shows. I'm sure.
And he'll be like,
When
"Oh, there's that. I didn't know that guy was had a creepy shrine to me." And I'll just make up all this stuff. He's got candles and everything. It's really creepy.
I'll just get blocked on his Twitter after that. That'll be great. When I look distinctive, which you can't tell because this is a podcast. But when like Ian Mackay from Fugazi, which is one of my favorite bands, after like Fugazi went on hiatus, he would just kind of do these like speaking tours, which I think he still does. And I went to a few of them in New England, and then after a while, I started showing up. He'd be like, "Hey, good to see you again, man." I think that's the so it's like one of those things. You like see me 2 or 3 times, it's like I'm burned into your memory. I'm kind of like a maybe like a bad omen that way, like a wraith or something. Like you can't forget me once you see me. It's horrifying. Well, that's going to be a fun show, and I hope you get a chance to talk to Joey Ryan. This Saturday, I'm going to Beyond Wrestling is putting on a show called Greatest Rivals Round Robin. And this is an interesting concept. It's going to be a round robin tournament involving Biff Busick, Drew Gulak, Eddie Edwards, and Timothy Thatcher. 4 of the best kind of throwback, like scientific mat wrestler, catch wrestling style guys around right now. And of course, Biff Busick on his way to NXT. So these will be Biff Busick's last matches at Beyond Wrestling, which has sort of been kind of a home away from home for him because he's from Boston. And so that the format is going to be like Busak versus Gulak, and then Busak versus Eddie Edwards, and Busak versus Thatcher, and then Gulak. So they're all going to wrestle each other like in kind of a round robin format, which is that only appeals, I think, to super diehard wrestling fans. Like, because you're watching the same four guys like have a match, like wrestle for I think 6 matches, right? So that's going to be interesting. However, also on the card, because perhaps they knew that not everybody would be into just watching four guys. We're gonna have Team Tremendous versus Andrew Everett and Trevor Lee. AR Fox versus Brian Fury. David Starr versus a mystery partner was gonna be Nick Gage, but of course Nick Gage has been re-arrested
Is that
and
true?
charged
He
with.
got arrested again?
He got arrested and charged with parole violations. I haven't been able to find out, because wrestling news sites aren't so good at details. But he hasn't. I haven't been able to find out what the alleged violation is. But yeah, he's so he will not be at the show. Sadly, I like Nick Gage a lot. And I am very, very excited about this match. Ricochet versus JT Dunn. Ricochet, Prince Puma, to those of you who are Lucha Underground fans, is one of the most exciting wrestlers in the world right now. He's a high flyer, and he's just as I forget who. Maybe it wasn't AR Fox. It was another one of those wrestlers on the Candice and Joey show. Another one of those PWG guys who described Ricochet as having all of our strengths and none of our weaknesses. And it really seems like that. It just seems like he can do anything as a wrestler. He's tremendous, and I've never seen him in person. I'm so excited that I'm finally getting a chance to see him. And JT Dunn, who is a local guy, is young, up and coming, is also a tremendous wrestler. Really fun to watch. Last Saturday, Mark and I saw him wrestle Johnny Gargano in a fantastic match in Stratford, Connecticut, in front of like 50 people. It's one of the smallest indie shows I've been to since you and I went to indie shows 15 years ago. And like they gave it everything. Like they might as well have been wrestling for 15,000 people. It was just a tremendous match, and so I'm very excited for this upcoming show. But it sounds like DDT is going to be a lot of fun as well.
You should mention that you won free tickets to an indie wrestling show.
That's right, I did. So at this show, I took a picture of JT Dunn and Johnny Gargano. JT Dunn was up against the barricade, and Gargano was putting his index finger in the air, signaling he's about to charge. I took a picture and posted it on Twitter and tagged the Federation, CTWE, and they made it their Facebook cover picture and gave me 2 free tickets, front row tickets to their next show, which features X-Pac.
All right, you can ask X-Pac about for political commentary, and
yes, he's a libertarian, as we learned this during the previous Republican debate.
And also Mick Foley.
That's right, and Mick Foley and Alex Riley, which is not surprising. Alex Riley was like tweeting some like pro-Trump stuff today. Rage Cage Riley. So everything is normal in Rage Cage's world.
Okay, normal over there, but yeah, I wonder. You don't usually think about it that much, but I wonder how many wrestlers are libertarians. It seems like a pretty popular thing. Kane also, right?
Yeah. That's sort of, I think, when you're involved in wrestling, it kind of makes sense that, because you think about how they're sort of laissez-faire about a lot of things, and they just like they're all independent contractors, and it kind of makes sense they'd be drawn to the sort of ideology that exalts the individual. There's never been a union in professional wrestling. There's never been any kind of collective effort. And it's the kind of, and also like involves like long stretches of travel where you're like by yourself or with one or two other people. It's the kind of thing that appeals to sort of individuals, I think. But it is weird how many of them are kind of like not right wing politically, because like wrestling for a long, long time has been like wrestlers don't care about, like at a time when America was far more racist even than it is now, like in the days of segregation, wrestlers didn't care about that. Sputnik Monroe, Memphis wrestler, famously was one of the people who helped desegregate Memphis sporting events because in the 50s, because he preferred the company of black people to white people. He was a white guy, and he would like go to bars that were only for blacks, and he would get arrested. It was a charge of vagrancy, to give you some idea of the time. He would get arrested for just drinking in a bar with black people, and he was so popular he would refuse to wrestle unless they allowed black fans to sit on the floor so they could cheer him on because he was super popular. And like, people have been openly gay in wrestling for a long, long time, long before it was acceptable in the rest of society. So wrestlers like don't care about that stuff, which I think is kind of a good side of it. The other thing is like, wrestlers have been on their own for things like health insurance and like retirement, like for much too long, and that's sort of the bad side of libertarianism.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for that kind of stuff, like it would. I mean, it's pretty obvious when someone like Kamala has to like crowdfund his life-saving surgery or whatever.
Yeah, or yeah, and like Jerry Lynn, a guy who's been in basically every wrestling promotion, major and minor, in North America and in Japan, has to like do a GoFundMe thing to pay for expenses related to necessary back surgery. Like it's horrible.
Yeah, and he has insurance.
And he has, yeah, right. And he had health insurance. Um, yeah, I mean, you just look at the. So if you think of wrestling as more performance, then you compare their situation to actors who are all in the Screen Actors Guild, at the level of television performers. And the Screen Actors Guild has a health plan. Like it negotiates things like royalties. It has all these provisions for its members. Or if you consider wrestling more of a sport, then you look at other professional athletes in North America. They're all in unions that do things like pay for pension plans and health plan. I mean, like it's just everyone else that's like wrestling has a better deal than wrestlers do. Um, and that's sort of the downside of that whole like lone wolf go it alone individualism thing. Um, you it's in something like wrestling. There really should be more of a safety net for the performers because it's so physically dangerous work.
Yeah, there. I mean, I guess WWE has like put in some stuff for wrestlers now after all the backlash of that not happening, but it's probably not anywhere near enough as like
Yeah,
full coverage health insurance or whatever.
right. They pay for like on the job injuries and things, but in terms of day to day health insurance, like going to the doctor for physicals and stuff, you pay for that your own WWE because the WWE wrestlers are independent contractors. They're not employees of WWE. Which is weird. Like actual employees of WWE, like the people who work in Stamford, they have health insurance through the company, but the wrestlers do not, which is it's odd.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Like the main people in your company.
Right, and even that wasn't the case. I think really until 2008 when Linda McMahon's political ambitions were sort of forming, and they realized they would have to kind of clean it. This is also the dawn of the TV PG era. Um, that was they sort of had to clean up their act if Linda was gonna become a U.S. senator. By the way, it didn't happen.
It was not even close to happening.
Poor Linda.
Yeah, there was no. I mean, I think most people are probably not from Connecticut that are listening to this, but man, Connecticut, you've got a real slim chance of winning if you're a Republican, unless
Yeah,
you're governor.
yeah, and even then,
Yeah.
yeah, like yeah, Linda McMahon. And the rumor is not to drag this out, but the rumor is that Linda is sniffing around at a possible third Senate run. She's spent something like $100 million on failed Senate campaigns, which is astonishing.
It's never going to happen in
Um,
the McMahon. You have to move to another state.
yeah, yeah, far away from the Northeast. Um, I think that probably does it for this installment. We've got some fun things coming up that we're going to be doing, and we'll be back next week to talk more about the wild world of professional wrestling. Good news this week: Lucha Underground is back. TNA is on the air through January. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, we'll
Um,
be back next week to at least talk about something positive about Raw and some indie shows.
yes. So in the meantime, if you're interested in any more of our thoughts, you can find us on my Tumblr is closetofanxiety.tumblr.com. Joe, you have a Tumblr
I
as
have a
well.
Tumblr, but it's not really important. Um, I do post wrestling stuff there, I guess, but mostly the important stuff Tom will reblog anyway.
That's true. So yeah, if you're looking, if you want the Tumblr experience, closetofanxiety.tumblr.com is the way to do it. If, however, you want the Twitter experience, then you can find me at TJ Breen on Twitter.
And I'm at xcornmuffinx, same as the YouTube channel. And I have actually been posting stuff on Twitter. I posted all along for the pay per view and a bit during Raw. And I've actually replied to people when they message me. It's great. Uh,
It's a new era because before this was not the case.
yeah, before I was checking it like once every 2 weeks. Now I check it regularly.
It's pretty exciting news. So yeah, that's the way to interact with us online. And in the meantime, enjoy all the wrestling world has to offer, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys next week.